Now, one thing is for certain is that the Netflix board of directors are very flawed individuals, but some of them are slowly but surely beginning to wake up about just how much of a disaster Meghan Markle truly is, and how she could really change the face of the studio in a very negative manner, and it's already beginning to happen as we speak. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new, and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So, one thing about Meghan Markle is that we know that she is basically this anchor, right? This dead weight for Netflix right now. She is actually leading Netflix to really go through a very desperate and panicky phase right now for multiple reasons. Now, ultimately, we do know that Meghan Markle is really trying to keep her career intact. She is trying to basically stay in line with remaining in the limelight, remaining in the spotlight, or remaining relevant, quote-unquote, as far as she sees it, and it's not going to work in the long run, because we have a lot of studios now beginning to blacklist her, cancel her, or just ban her outright from ever appearing in a movie or a TV show. But I digress. There's a lot of studio politics going on right now over at Netflix, and a lot of back and forth scenarios happening between the executives and even Meghan Markle herself, and it's not looking good for herself as she is already beginning to attack Netflix CEO Greg Peters. So let's jump into this, shall we? Now, we already know that Meghan Markle is a very self-absorbed individual, very narcissistic, very much, one that you would say is insufferable, to say the least, if you really want to sum it up into one word there. Interestingly enough, though, to really top things off here, when everything begins to actually hit rock bottom, is that with the Netflix drama going on right now, with Meghan Markle already beginning to hit rock bottom, one significant development that is now active involves more to do with Meghan Markle and her recent attacks on Netflix CEO Greg Peters that recently erupted after a series of events revolving around her show called With Love Meghan. It turns out that after the most recent emergency meeting took place at Netflix over the metrics for With Love Meghan, both financially and other statistics, Peters was able to convince the executives, producers, and even the board to cut out the entire ending for With Love Meghan. Now, Meghan Markle, not so shockingly, got involved in a remote meeting with Greg Peters after he made this vocally clear to her that they were moving along with canceling the ending of the show for the final episodes, and they are swapping it out with a safer choice. Meghan Markle actually shot 3 endings for her series where she believed the one that was recently canceled was her best work. The ending was going to center on both Meghan Markle and Mindy Kaling, along with other surprise familiar faces / cameos that Netflix found to be too controversial now in 2025 for the show, where they were going to be talking about the importance of activism and diversity. Now, this was recently and instantly scrubbed / canceled after the massive public backlash and pushback from, of course, studios embracing DEI over merit and creativity. The scene was shot where Meghan and her friends talk about the importance of diversity, equity, inclusion, as well as activism. A scene that Netflix months ago actually went through to film, and they are now choosing a more generic ending that is going to focus on one of her hobbies instead. Now, already Meghan Markle blamed Greg Peters for engaging with President Donald Trump and deciding to actually get very political behind the scenes. Greg Peters' debate and his argument was that this had nothing to do with politics or with Donald Trump's call to end DEI everywhere, but rather to value the customer at hand and to value the customer base and to save any further backlash from happening. Markle surprisingly labeled Greg Peters as a liar and one that is frightened of President Donald Trump and how he is set to abolish DEI across the board, even in Hollywood. Now, guys, before I move on about what Meghan Markle was actually attacking Greg Peters over, is that she believed that this is all driven by politics. This is typical Meghan Markle. Everything has to be political. Everything has to be, engaged in sexism and misogyny. It's the same repeated nonsense. But the fact that Netflix, CEO Greg Peters got the board of directors to wake up and say, let's cancel out this ending that has a lot to do with DEI and activism and all of this nonsense that nobody wants to hear, and let's choose a safer decision. Now look, each way it's not going to work, right? One way you have a scene where Mindy Kaling and Meghan Markle and their friends are talking about DEI. that wasn't going to work. This isn't going to work either by focusing on a hobby for Meghan Markle. Either way, it's going to be a cringe fest. We all know it. They know it. They just have to basically go into survival mode now, where they have to choose the safer bet. Ultimately, this show is going to fail. It's going to lead to a lot of unsubscribers. I think that Netflix is going down the Disney Plus route. We already know that Disney Plus lost tons and tons of subscribers. We'll talk more about that in the coming days. This is something that is now just being revealed, and Bob Iger, the CEO over at Disney, is also beginning to fall into a state of panic. Much like Greg Peters is right now over at Netflix. They don't know quite what to do anymore with this show because of how much backlash it's getting, and for all the right reasons. Now, moving on from all of this, alright, the cancellation of her ending for the show is creating more chaos for the editors now, since it is going to shift the entire pacing of the show's final episode that they believe was already off to a lackluster start. So not only are the editors now pretty much in this last-minute phase of re-editing the final episode, they also are informing the executives that this is going to change the pacing of the final episode completely. It's going to change everything. And how the final episode, even with the ending that was canceled, it was already off to a bad start to begin with. So that's pretty much, a lot of alarm bells going off right now, a lot of red flags being shown to the Netflix executives that even the editors are really caught up in a mess right now and are very much frightened over their job handling With Love Meghan. Now look, we know that a second trailer is on the verge of getting canceled. We may never even see a second trailer for this show. In fact, the marketing team that was actually handpicked by Meghan Markle, I don't know if you guys knew this, but we talked about this, the ones that came after the previous team, they themselves are already urging the executives to actually not move forward with the second trailer and that it's a waste of funds. But I digress again, moving onwards. Greg Peters is already warning Markle that her behavior will not be tolerated in the public eye, and it's exactly why they banned her from participating in certain events and interviews for her show, hence why the public is not seeing much of her press tour for her series. Now, Markle's attack on the Netflix CEO also involved how she warned him that she is preparing to expose the truth slash the lies, essentially, coming from the Netflix studio politics, and how she claims she is being used in a very unprofessional way and plans to call it out on radio shows and podcasts. So that's another thing, is that she's planning to use radio shows, podcasts, etc., to expose the truth or what Netflix is supposedly lying about when it comes to the Meghan Markle issues behind the scenes. Now, I think at the end of the day, everything is going to begin to go sour. We know that there are still board of directors over there that are defending her day in and day out. They are ride or die for Meghan Markle right now. They want to still move on with a Meghan Markle With Love Meghan series Season 2. But ultimately, I think it's going to result in this show getting canceled outright once this thing debuts in early March. But overall, I would love to hear what everyone has to say about all this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.